Hello, Jeremy Milner, staff product designer on the Foundations team. Just providing a quick update on token naming process and where that stands. So I have the design token inventory open right now. There are three tabs that we're focusing on in this. There's the constants, which are the immutable core values of our color palette. There is the semantic tab. You can see there's a small number here, uh, just 33 semantic tokens, and then the contextual ones. And this right now is a true inventory. It's taking a look at every single instance or use of color for all of the components, including the focus rings. So right around 400 of these individual tokens. Some things aren't accounted for example, card or button group, things that might button group could leverage other styles, and card design really doesn't exist. So this was the first take, was really throwing in some initial semantic tokens that we knew would be used for background, border, text, some of the global kind of defaults, for lack of a better term, just the most commonly used tokens, and then taking a true inventory of the contextual. But didn't want to stop there. And really, the value of tokens is their semantic qualities. And so, because of that, wanted to work on pulling out some of that intent and that meaning. Conversations about separation of concerns, and we could very well do the route where all tokens are for components. Uh, and keep those separate. However, that doesn't help us with anything for consistency, or it doesn't help us with allowing other teams to maybe construct something similar in the future based on pajamas, because it's all locked up in components. So if they do new component, it's got to have new tokens and whatnot. And so I wanted to take another look at how we can make the semantic layer really more robust, in a way that can support tokens with minimal contextual tokens. And so how that's done is by having categories of semantic tokens. So there's feedback, there's action, status, control. So control would be anything form related. So inputs and checkboxes, radio buttons, selects, status. You can think of like our badges, actions. So that could be buttons, links, things like that. We also have, oh, let's see, toggle and pagination and tabs. Those are all actions under that action bucket. And feedback. So feedback, we have alerts, we have banners, we have toast, we have tooltip, and we have parts of the product that are identified as confidential, or get the blue info because it's the current comment that you linked on from the email, and so it highlights it and sends it there. So these are all feedback type categories, where there's special combinations that we use for those, and we create a context where maybe it's a critical context and so it uses red, or it's an informational context and it uses blue, or it's successful, it's etc. So being able to build those out. So taking a look at this approach, there's approximately 225 semantic tokens in here for color, as is, and they actually cover a majority of what previously existed for contextual at the component level. And there are some benefits to this, in that we can really streamline things. So if you think about feedback, this blue 50 and the 600, this would be like the background of an info alert. This would be the icon color for the alert, but this background color could also be for the highlighted comment section, or a highlighted row in a table that's new. Same with the green for success, or you added a row in a table. Whatever, however they get used, they have more purpose. For actions, we have this action neutral text color that can be used for like links, like meta links, neutral meta links. It can be used for neutral buttons. and so on and so forth. So you can see that it's more of a one to many, but we're saying, oh, it's an action, and this is the style for it. So the token names kind of spell that out. They are a little longer. Some of that is just our own doing because we have buttons with confirm and secondary, right? So we have this combination that is a little longer. You can see that if we get down at maybe some of the status where we have status info, it's a little shorter. And then covering those states so that anytime anything new that came up that had to do with status and was interactive, it could leverage this pattern, if you will. So putting these things into categories. Likewise, if you look here, we have essentially 11 design tokens that can cover all of form elements. So uh, definitely some wins there where we don't need to have separate tokens for checkbox and radio buttons and inputs and text areas, which today there are inconsistencies, and so this will update those. It's important to note that there will be changes with light mode with our current state for color. There just has to be with a system like this when we try to uh, bring things together and use a single construct to identify them. I will say that there are still contextual components that have to be addressed and working through those. So there are going to be contextual ones and snowflakes, if you will, and we're fine with that. There's an opportunity then to determine they can just remain snowflakes and that's fine, or we can pull them in to some part of the semantic layer at a later point. So these are ones that are still being worked through. You can see like avatar fallback. It has these colors that they're not associated with info or with success or warnings. They're just straight up just picking colors, from the 50 step of the ramp, excuse me, out of the colors. So there's no semantic meaning applied to these. It's just their fallback. So avatar fallback, and that's what it is. It's an extension of that. That's great. Avatar text can still use, the main text semantic. Uh, Same applies to border. For right now, these are the only borders that are really transparent, and so keeping those separate. But in the meantime, working through the rest of these, and these aren't complete, but seeing what else can we bring over into the semantic layers. So uh, tons of things are neutral, like with drop downs, the hover state of items, um, some of the iconography or the borders, the background. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity to take these things and say, you know what? There's already something semantic under an action that handles this. Um, so let's see here, scanning through here. Um, Toggle's another one where it's an action. So how can we either add something to the semantic layer for actions that'll maybe cover this and say pagination because they both have a blue selected state or whatever it might be, working through that abstraction still and going through that process. But this is the thinking that we'd be able to create this semantic layer and provide ourselves with the opportunity to have components reference these directly in the CSS, and then have other teams be able to leverage this if they need to build like things and have them stay consistent with pajamas. Again, if we were to go a route like this where we are heavily weighted towards contextual and a separation of concerns, we really limit the number of options that we would provide anyone else to try to build something uh, that looks like the design system. So wanting to prevent that, wanting to give ourselves all the opportunity to be consistent and to have uh, those tools to fall back on. So there might be other categories that get added to this. And go from there. But anyways, trying to keep this under 10 minutes. Just a quick overview of where we're at. I will you'll see this in the issue. We'll be cleaning up some low level decisions like naming and using dot notation versus hyphens and whatnot. You can see some of that already reflected in the spreadsheet. Uh, but thanks for taking the time. And if you have questions, respond in the thread. Thanks.